Change my world, share my life, trust in me, all I want. Peace and blessings, family. This is your boy Gerald. Let me first put this out. All media imagery heard through my video is protected by the Fair Use Copyright Act of 1976. It is used for educational use only. All rights and reservation and entitlements are for the sole artist, label, or entity that has sole control of content. So it's there. Peace. How's everybody doing? It's Tuesday morning, May 14th, 2019. How is everybody doing? I hope that your weekend was well. For those who have been bestowed the title of mother, I hope that you had a peaceful, joyful day of acknowledgement. Even though it is only one day, it is your actions that set the template that establishes the direction that your offspring or those who you have influence will instill. So let me throw that out there. So I decided this morning I wanted to talk. I just wanted to put this out because over this weekend, I had a watershed moment. I did. And let me make sure I got this right because I know that the chat is going. Peace and blessing, Lucky. How are you? And with Mother's Day building up, I made sure that no matter what I had going on in my day to day, I took a second, just a second, proverbially, to acknowledge those people that not only have had laid the foundation, that put the time and even the critique to polish my psyche, to cause me to inspire to think critically, connected by blood and bone, through financial connection as well as emotional tie. I wanted to take a second to acknowledge their impact and influence in my life. Good, not so good, because it's all about each one, teach one family. But I would be remiss to go back and not say it is those experiences that help us navigate not only through our journey, but help define our story known as our legacy. So if you are deemed to be called mother, let me throw this out to you I hope that your Mother Day you will celebrate it. But guess what? That's just one day. What about the other 364? What about the other 364? And I say that with love. But as I navigated through my weekend, because I work, some of us don't have Saturday, Sunday as their day of rest and recruit. Some, your days off or your days off. But, there was a lot of examples that were shown that caused me to ponder, that caused me to take a second to take in. Because I truly believe that there is nothing that you will be shown that's done in vain. It's just when you decide to take note, even if it's repetitive. And I know sometimes people will take a position to shore up their emotional self being because they may be in a season where it's not so sunny. It's not so peaceful because there may be some discourse going on. There may be some drama in the midst. And and those are the times that you notice that you do a lot of thinking. You do a lot of problem solving. Some of us know that as putting out little fires that are in your life, directly or indirectly, because you have to tap into yourself, dig deep if need be, just to ensure you have peace of mind. So it made me wonder, because, I start my day during the mid time of the day and I end it in the evening. And just like you, I have to commute with the end goal of returning where I started, and that's through my door. And I wondered how many people decide that how they navigate whatever's going on. Like, say, for example, you have that epiphany where you realize that there may be a requirement, a challenge that for you, you've done everything that you possibly can do, but you realize that it's falling on deaf ears. Or the reality is the environment is exactly it. Does it cause you to question if this is causing you to be stagnant in your direction? Or does it make you scratch your head and say, am I the one that's crazy? Or is it the truth of the matter is I'm condoning it for a greater cause? I've always been a firm believer that proverbially, I think the last total, there's 7.3 billion people on the planet. 50% of the people that are on the planet choose to use the approach of compartmentalization. And what I mean by that is you pick your battles. Now, granted, there may be times where you can't render or get the solution at that moment in time because you have an objective that you need to do. But it still requires a resolution. It still requires a dialogue. It still requires mutual understanding. But 2019, we've been inundated with so much distractive narratives of, well, you can't express yourself like this because you may offend like that. Or if you don't agree, you are ostracized. So the question I always wanted to know is, what does it take, or what does your definition of happiness look like? What about the price? What are you willing to sacrifice to ensure that that smile remains on your face? Now, I understand that through time becomes development, and some may just say that's what growth is all about. You're going to have growing pains. You're going to have to make certain concessions. But what about those people that are dealing with Stockholm syndrome, when the oppressor has no intentions of letting up? Because you have a lot of people that are walking around broken, walking around even though proverbially the wound is deep, but the outer layer is healed. You know, you hear people all the time as a justification to say, well, Gerald, you have to break a couple eggs to make an omelet. But has anybody taken time to realize, well, maybe those eggs were bad to begin with? And it just seems like everything that's going on, if you peel back the layers, it falls back onto duality. And for some that don't know what I mean, dualities and just bare base is opposites, contrast, good, bad, light, heavy. But we only use 6% of that beautiful mind. We're all given that. But yet, when it comes to the things that matter most, we find convenience in holding our emotions hostage instead of having the courage to stand on it. How did we get there? How did we get there? For example, if you know that you're not seeing eye to eye with somebody, for whatever the reason may be, has it ever crossed your mind the value of that association to begin with? And what I mean by that is, if you know that that person does not see your value, does not value your time, does not see the efforts that are being submitted, given freely, can we really be mad because they're not giving anything in return? You know, you hear people all the time say, well, in this world, there are two types of people. You have givers and you have and takers. And if you look at your life, we play that position in different phases of development. But one thing that should never be compromised is your happiness. Good morning. So I asked, how much does your happiness cost? What is it? What is the image that in your mind says this defines my happiness? What do I need to do to get there? And to be honest, when you ask somebody that, it requires a level of transparency for them to give you the answer because maybe they're afraid to admit that to themselves. Now, granted, I've said it countless times. Not everybody is going to know your story. Not everybody's going to earn the right to walk with you. Not everybody is going to earn the right to hear you breathe. So when you give of yourself freely, it should match what is in return. And that is the problem, that there is an underlying narrative going on in society where, you know, I hate using the terms of, well, she got played or he got taken advantage of. Because there's still a need, there's still a presence, there's still an outcome, and there's still an action for it all to come. Sometimes we'll go down a path and we might not see the end goal, but we feel it inside ourselves that this is what I need to do. And it motivates you. It motivates you to keep going. Have you ever taken a second to question why? Is it impulsive? Is it something that sparks your uniqueness? Or is it something that fills a void? Because let's be honest with it. You realize how many people have everything they could ever want on this earthly realm, but they feel empty inside? But guess what? The people that are in your life are an example, a physical example of your state of being. That's why when you hear people say each one teach one, you've got to have a commonality. Otherwise, what are you going to, why are they there? Sometimes people gravitate towards people because they see an essence of themselves in them, or they see choices made that had an impact that they want to protect them. It's kind of like seeing a proverbial train wreck before it happens. Or like right here in Virginia right now, where we have overcast skies. Now we ultimately wish the sun would come out, but it's about the process. But if someone sees your value, if someone genuinely cares about who you are, they don't care what you possess. Because your greatest gift is found within yourself. Your greatest illustration is your smile. Your greatest definition is you. So I wonder why so many people, and you know what's really sad, because you see it play out all the time. You see a person that's had life, right? And they're in their senior years and they're just as angry, they're just as bitter, but they're just alone. And I could never understand that. When the holidays come, it's just another day to them because they have emotionally disconnected so long ago They don't know what it symbolizes, but that's exactly what it is. It's a symbol, it's a representation. Just like someone asked me, said, well, why is it, Gerald, that you always say, people can change? You breathe, right? You woke up today. So what's keeping you from being happy? And the hardest task about someone being unhappy is the individual identifying what keeps them from being happy. And that may be the hardest thing to do, to actually acknowledge where the disconnect is. What may require is, hey, I need to have a conversation with you, because not only do I value who you are, I'm trying to make this right. But sadly, because we are individuals, mind, body, and spirit, you can't make nobody do nothing they don't want to do. Just like you can't make someone say hello. That's ingrained in you. But I've heard people say, well, what if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Maybe I feel a certain kind of way. You realize that one of the jewels of life is you're never supposed to go to bed angry. You should never have any strife in your mind, because if you go to bed with that in your mind, you will never sleep, because your body is trying to reset itself. It's trying to heal itself. But if your mind is constantly running, it's going to distract you. It's no different than that blue light that's under your cell phone. You can put the phone in the room, and guarantee you that blue light will distract you from what you're doing. Sleep. Now let's flip the script. Imagine what a hello can do. Imagine if someone just picked the phone up and said, hey, I ain't trying to disturb you. I just want to acknowledge how you doing. That's priceless. You can't pay for that. Yes, granted, you can go out and buy anything under the sun. But usually we see that when when you done messed up and you're trying to do some damage control. You know? So this morning I woke up, and in my spirit, I heard, how much is your happiness worth? What are you willing to do to protect it? And what haven't you done to ensure that you have joy in your spirit? But to do that, you got to be transparent with yourself. I tell everybody that is connected to me, the best friend you're going to ever have is the person in the mirror looking back. They are the keepers of your direction, your hopes, your dreams, and the validation of your being. But we have to be real. We got to be real, because an opportunist don't need your help to expose themselves. Not everybody is supposed to have access to you. But if you are true to yourself, sooner or later, you're going to part ways anyway. And it'll be the moment when they don't have access to you that then they'll start to appreciate what you represented. Maybe your presence is to teach them how to be financially savvy, how to be strong, how to be committed to who you are. That's why I always, you know, it's there ain't nothing. You realize how many, I gotta speak it. You realize how many women I saw on Mother's Day that looked so beaten down, so disconnected. I mean, it was like, damn, what's going on with you? And if you're a man, that's going to bother you a little bit because it's your responsibility to protect your queen. If you don't do it, you're leaving that up to society to define it. And which is kind of crazy because when you think about it, we've got all these social narratives out there. Okay, everybody's got a voice. Everybody needs to be accounted for. But there's no voice of individual responsibility because nothing happens, nothing without your presence. How can something have impact if you're not there? So, with that statement, an opportunist doesn't need your help to expose themselves. What is required is you have the courage to identify it when and acknowledge it when you do. Because if you don't, guess what? It repeats itself, and it will continue to. Just like a termite in a tree, it will keep eating at you and eating at you and eating at you until you either acknowledge it or you act out. Your life is supposed to be nothing but leaps and bounds. Now, I'm not saying that life is going to be based off of the narratives that are shown in the movies because that's exactly what it is. And what is movies? It's just a covert version of propaganda to push a certain response. You don't believe me? Look at reality TV, which is contradictory because they call it reality TV, but there ain't nothing real about it. So what purpose does it serve? You could say, well, it's entertainment, Gerald. Okay, yeah, but doesn't isn't entertainment supposed to intellectually stimulate you? And this is not to bash them because at the end of the day, it's a revenue machine. It's going to do and be what it wants to be. And unfortunately, the impressionable that just like cartoons, they find a narrative and you support it. That's why you get viewership. There's some way of relating. But it's just sad because we're getting at a point now that people don't want to be real anymore. They don't want to. They don't. They don't want to. They don't want to go. They don't want to do the work. They want to. They just. It's kind of like being a refugee in your own life. Or like being on a canoe with no oar. You're just going down the stream of life, and if the canoe hits something, great. But you bounce, like a pinball in a pinball machine. It happens, and then you're still floating around until you don't. It doesn't matter anymore. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. So I ask the question again: what is it going to take for you to be happy? I always, some people got mad and it was like, well, when I use the example of look at your contacts, does your contacts should be the first example of your worth and value because the people on your phone should want nothing but the best for you. If they don't inspire you or support you, why do they have access to your life? Why? What does it serve? What is the benefit of it? Just makes you wonder. I remember somebody told me, they said, well, Gerald, you're going to have two type of people. You're going to have those that are going to do the work, and then you're going to have those that are going to go for the ride. And I didn't want to accept that because I was like, that's kind of a lowball example of being taken advantage of. But that's how opportunists work because they already see your greatness from the first hello. May it be from a physical prowess to an emotional impact. They know, as well as they're able to gauge where you may lack. Because doesn't a fly have have know how to get inside where you live? A fly knows. And the opportunist does the same thing. They see where there's work that needs to be done. And they will exploit that with the end goal to what? Frustrate you until you kill it. It's just sad though. It's just really sad because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing worse than seeing somebody and they're suffering in silence. You see it. But then socially, we've got this narrative of, well, you know what? Love, without love, that you can't have pain. I disagree. Because if they love you, aren't they supposed to protect you? So it contradicts itself. I don't know. But then again, sometimes what's required, fam, you have to allow the chips to fall where they do. Sometimes you have to get out of their way so you can define your own. And that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. So I just felt like throwing that out there this morning before I start my day. Don't ransom your happiness just to keep the norm. Because you see this narrative play out all the time. Where like, well, I'm not happy in this relationship. But if I say anything, it's gonna tip over the apple cart. So I'm gonna be silent and I'm just gonna deal. If that ain't emotional servitude, I don't know what is. And you're doing yourself a disservice because at the end of the day, family, your happiness is priceless. But more importantly, if you don't defend it, how can you expect them to protect it? We teach people how we want to be treated. And isn't that what respect and honor is all about? I'm just saying. What's the point on crying? It shouldn't take an outburst for you to be taken serious. It shouldn't take you to turn every stone proverbially. You're doing all the work. And it's not being appreciated. Now, I'm not saying that from a place of conceit. I'm not. I'm saying what matters most is the little boy or the little girl that still exists in you. You're still that person. As you progress through life, you take on a different perspective and more responsibility. So, where's the balance in that? Yeah, I know we can turn around and say, well, I've earned the right to be the rock of the family or the anchor, all things. Well, if that's the case, shouldn't you also be the example of what's needed? If you're not living it, how can you expect anybody to be influenced from? I always said eventually you're going to have to find comfort in your discomfort if you want change. I said that. I said that because I had to get there. You know, yes, physically, that has a little weight, a little bit. But what matters most is what you can't see. That's found within you, your integrity, your emotional well being. And you realize how many people are walking around emotionally detached? So you basically saying, well, Gerald, I ain't got time to analyze what's going on because I gotta fix this. But if you're not in a position, if you're by yourself, great. But if you are in a relationship, why are you doing all the work by yourself? Why does it feel like you're pulling teeth? You shouldn't have to feel like you got to pull teeth for people to treat you what you rightfully deserve. And if it feels like love is a battle, which I'm going to take that from James Baldwin. There's two poems that I hold dear. One is poet Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled. Look it up. You can find it here. And the other one was James Baldwin. Love is a battle. Love is a war. Love is about scars, but it's defined by growth. You're supposed to have your happy ever after. You're supposed to have it. But it requires you to be invested first. It don't come with this. It comes with this. It's measured with this. But society's not going to tell you that. Society's trying to push a narrative of, well, you're never going to be happy unless she looks a certain way. She got to look like she fell off the magazines, dog. You realize how many people that look on those magazines can't make a bologna cheese sandwich? They don't have any life skills, and they're going through life thinking that that's all they need. The reason why they do that is because they're making a choice not to connect with their emotional self. They don't want to have the discussion of what do I need? Where am I going? Why am I here? What do I need to do to ensure that I am respected? It starts with yourself. You can't buy that. And then lastly, I, Queens, I always would say, Stop looking for love. Stop. Stop doing that. And I don't say that to be mean. I'm saying that is because that's something that's cultivated in yourself. Your mate, who that person is going to be. If you are a female and you say you're having that dialogue of when am I going to get married? You don't want Mr. Right now. You want Mr. Forever. But society don't want to have that conversation. They don't. They don't want to have that because that undermines not only revenue that they make, but it goes against true principles. And you can't have principles without seeing your value and worth. So, how much does your happiness cost? What does it look like? And what does it take for you to get there? Only you know that. Maybe now it's time to have that conversation with yourself. And trust me, when you get to a place of being comfortable within yourself, watch what happens. All those people that have access to your life, one by one, they're going to disappear if they don't feel the same because they should be the living example of that already. Because if they truly valued you, if they truly knew what the word friend was, they would be living the example too. I hope you guys have a blessed week. Comment below, like, share, and if you don't, drop me a line. Let's discuss it. But nonetheless, God's praying for you. And for that, helps me discern mine. You shouldn't be holding your smile hostage because you feel uncomfortable. You need to have courage and question why you're not doing that yourself. Because that's defined and measured by you, not your environment. Be blessed.